Now what will it be? Death or exile?
Hello, everyone out there. Good day, Exiles. Welcome to a special edition of the Film Exiles podcast. And this is our first ever award season roundup / Oscars preview. And I am excited to be joined by a powerful, respected voice in the film blogging, film, cinema talk, film reviewing space, and it's Brittany from Pop Culture Reviews. Brittany, how are you doing? Introduce yourself to the people.
Hello. First of all, I have to say, the introduction, you put me at a way high bar, and I don't know if I'm going to
No lies. No lies. I just keep it real.
So to all the listeners out there, sorry for the disappointment that you're about to experience. But it's my pleasure to join you on the podcast.
Thank you. And you guys know me. I am yours truly, Lupe. So Brittany, where can we, listen to you or read your content? Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Sure. So, I am a writer for Pop Culture Reviews. You can find me at popculturereviews.com or at the Twitter handle popculturerev. And we write reviews on a lot of TV and film.
Yeah, and a lot. When you say a lot, I'm telling you guys, Brittany goes to how many film festivals did you go to in 2019?
Only two. That's not that bad.
Only two. And which two were they?
It was the 2019 Sundance Film Festival in Utah, and then the San Diego Film Festival.
Awesome. And you saw a ton of movies. You saw all the indie movies. And yeah, you're bringing a lot of knowledge to this discussion, and I think it's going to be a good one. So we're talking about prestige films. We're talking about indie films. Let's just start with what prestige awards mean to us. Are they important? Britt, why don't you just start and tell us what you think?
Well, I think you already know what I'm about to say. But, it certainly depends on the person. For me, I appreciate prestige awards, and I'm excited when some artist or director or film wins that I've enjoyed personally. But I don't think they're all that important. Like, it certainly doesn't take away from an actor or an actress's performance if they've done exceptionally well. And it certainly doesn't, diminish anything about the amount of work that people put into their project. So it's certainly a personal thing for me. I kind of don't give a damn. Like I certainly get excited when something that I absolutely love wins, but it doesn't deter me from a particular film if it doesn't win. Let's just say that.
All right. Well, I mean, I'm of two minds about it because ultimately, I know that film is subjective. It's how you interpret it, how you feel about it. I always say nobody can tell you how to feel about a film. So if somebody tells me that, I don't know, Citizen Kane is a masterpiece, it's the greatest film ever, and I feel it's a boring piece of shit, I just do. I find it weird when, people say, oh, critics say this film is amazing, but my question is always, how do you feel about it? How did your eyes and your brain and your experiences in life, all that stuff, how How did that make you perceive that film? That's the most important thing. So in that sense, prestige awards are useless.
Mm-hmm.
It's if you award the film personally, that's what should mean the most. But at the same time, prestige awards are good in that they set a standard of excellence
Mm-hmm.
for films and filmmakers to strive towards. And that's good for future generations so that
Certainly.
people are
Yeah.
always trying to make the best stuff and pushing the craft forward and trying to top what has been done before. Or even if they can't top what has been done before, at least trying to meet that standard. So that's quite important. And also, it commemorates excellent work in terms of being a time marker. So when we, look back in time and we see that a film won an Oscar, it kind of it keeps it in our minds forever. It sort of immortalizes these pieces of art. So those are the two
Yeah.
things that
But I will say there have been some Best Picture winners that are a little bit questionable.
like Crash. Oh, yeah, that was a horrible one.
So with that being said, I mean, I certainly agree with you in a sense that, these films, you kind of have to award people and artists and actors, directors, cinematographers for the amount of work or the quality of work that they've put in to these projects. But I think as a viewer, it's certainly important to recognize the power in perspective. And that means that we all are going to feel a certain way about a film because of the experiences that we've had in life.
True.
And
True.
so I might not be, I might not think anything of Bombshell, for instance, because that's certainly a film that's not for me in particular. And we can talk about that later. But that's just how I feel. But these award shows are always fun. Every year we say, "Oh, so and so was snubbed," and yet we
Everything.
always tune in.
Exactly. That's the fun thing about it, and that's what this discussion is going to be about. So, guys, if you're listening to this, try not to take our opinions personally, and at the same time, you don't have to take our opinions as the Bible. These are just
It kind of
subjective.
is, though. Like it's okay.
Yeah. So, an interesting thing to talk about is popular, blockbuster movies versus prestige films. Why, in particular, are prestige films like looked at with this sort of lofty? They're set on a pedestal. What's the difference between a typical popular blockbuster and a prestige film, and why do we celebrate them in this way? I mean, I could start off. I think that the distinction really has to do with craftsmanship, has to do with techniques and skills, and a lot of those also has to do with being a bit unconventional and having a very strong message and being quote unquote socially relevant, which
Mm-hmm.
means saying something important about the times that you exist in. That's a very powerful feature of films and always has been, whether it has to do with civil rights, whether it has to do with women's rights, race relations, politics, the war in Vietnam, the blight of drugs on neighborhoods, gang warfare, that sort of thing. The medium of film is a very powerful tool for influencing people and changing people. And so indie films tend to be able to take that aspect of film and really push it very hard and be very serious and very authentic about it. Blockbusters tend to want to please and be lighter with things like that. tend to. I didn't say they always do or they never do.
So I'm inclined to agree with you, but I think we have to be careful with the word indie film.
Okay.
Because indie, for me at least, you know, people can have their own definitions, but indie for me means you don't have the full financial support or the backing of a major studio. Okay. So that means this is coming out of the director's pocket, this is coming out of the producer's pocket. So even what we might perceive as indie, it might actually not be. So I guess what's an example of an indie film for you?
An example of it, to me, like, you're very correct in making sure that we have this distinction down pat. For me, it just tends to be about the budgetary scale, and a lot of times it just has to do with what it looks like. Like for me, blockbusters is always like big action sequences, snazzy VFX, snazzy costumes, and production design, and it's just all blown out and it's big. And indie just, for me, is like small. So for example, in my mind, The Irishman is an indie movie. And that's what exactly.
What was the budget of Irishman? It was like millions, hundreds of millions. That is not an indie film.
At all. So you are very correct that we shouldn't play fast and loose with those terms, because it does do a disservice to people who work under the financial constraints of making actual indie movies, and it's almost a magical feat that they're able to make such great work, under the constraints. So you're right to pull my card on that. You are.
Not to do like a self-promotion or anything, but if you guys are interested in checking out more indie films, I actually write for a website called Film Threat, and we specifically review majority, like 85 to 90% of our reviews are indie films. So these are low budget. They don't have the money to put in for advertising. They don't even have the money for the production. They kind of just go out and film these as little times as possible, and we pick their screeners and we review the films and we try to advertise for them.
That's awesome. So your opinion on blockbusters versus prestige movies, and why we revere our prestige films. What's your opinion on that topic?
So, how much time we got? Here's the thing. People seem to have this really weird idea that we can't appreciate both. There's this side of, let's talk about Twitter, right? Because that's what a lot of people are on Twitter, right? Yeah. There's a side of film Twitter. Yeah, I'm talking to you, film Twitter. There's a side of film Twitter who's like, oh, you enjoyed the Avengers movies? Let me introduce you to I don't know, what would they say? Let me introduce you to Parasite. First of all, everybody loves Parasite. So let's relax there. But they'll use that as a tool to say you don't have a good opinion on film because you like blockbusters, which is weird, because let's be honest, blockbusters are here for a reason, to what? Entertain. Sometimes you just kick back, throw off our shoes, and get some mindless entertainment. I'm talking about the Terminator movies, I'm talking about the Avengers movies, I'm talking about whatever else is out there. Mission Impossible. Actually, I'm not going to bring Mission Impossible into this because those movies are lit. Good. Let me cut myself off. But you know what I mean? Like, sometimes blockbusters are there to serve us with complete mindless entertainment, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with enjoying them. Absolutely. On the side, like, I think it is important, if you want to call yourself a movie lover, I think it is important to make sure that you are watching a variety or a diverse range of types of movies. And that includes indies, as we just discussed, and it also includes some of the more, I guess we can call it Oscar bait films. While we're on the topic of prestige, right? Yeah. So, I mean, I personally, I lean more towards the, the dramas and the ones that say something about our society and things like that. But I have no problem enjoying blockbusters and seeing them for what they are, and that's entertainment. Because when we think about it, at the end of the day, the general audience, they go to movies to be entertained. And sometimes they don't want to be preached at. It's unfortunate because, like, maybe they have the privilege to not, have to deal with, race issues or poverty or whatever it is a particular film is trying to say. Maybe they have that privilege, but, sometimes entertainment is just entertainment, and we gotta chill. So, I don't know. I feel like I'm getting a little preachy here, so I'm gonna come.
No. You're dead on. You're right, because and we're gonna talk a little bit more about some blockbusters, because I feel like Godzilla, King of the Monsters, got robbed for VFX, and I'm gonna rant about that. So anyway, we'll get more into that as we talk. So yeah, there were a lot of prestige Oscar bait / indie movies last year. We're going to talk mainly about the ones that were Oscar nominated, but there's some that weren't, and they're amongst our favorites. So this is our chance to talk about some films that we saw last year that we absolutely loved. Maybe our audience listening didn't see these films, and this is our chance to make a case for them and discuss them. So we can go back and forth. I'll throw it to you. You throw it back to me, and you can start.
Can I just say I am so disappointed in the Academy for completely neglecting to even award or I don't know, give some type of acknowledgement to Portrait of a Lady on Fire. This is it's my personal opinion, but this is definitely one of the best films of the year, if not of the decade. How can they seriously ignore this film? Beyond me. But Portrait of a Lady on Fire is definitely up there. I mean, where do I start? Where do I even start?
What awards? So if you were an Oscar voter, what awards would you nominate it for?
Script, cinematography, and actress. I know it's hard because the two leads, Adele and oh dear God, I'm forgetting her name. Anyways, yeah, I especially cinematography.
Yes, I was about to say everything can be debated, but cinematography cannot be debated. I think also on the low, the sound mixing, I think, because they're by the seaside, and there's a lot of silence in the movie as well. And those two things I shouldn't have noticed, but I noticed in a positive way. The sound of the waves on the shore.
Exactly.
Were almost, it was almost like a score in some moments.
Oh my goodness. I actually wrote this in my review. That's insane that you just said that. I wrote that in my review, sound of the oceanic waves crashing at the seashore, and then there's also wood cracking on the fire.
It's mind blowing the way that you sound, and the cinematography is just. I mean, the film is Portrait of a Lady on Fire, and it's about a painter, and the visuals are painterly like you've never seen before. It's like a moving Renaissance picture. That's exactly what it looks like.
To make matters even better, the freaking script. It's like,
Yeah, absolutely.
like
Yes,
I
it is.
haven't seen a very tender exploration of a relationship in a
Absolutely.
long time. And the way
Absolutely.
Celine Sciamma did this film blows my mind every single time I think about it. Every time.
And it's also saying something. I mean, it's a female director, female driven movie. It is a feminist movie, but not in that very brutish and sometimes clumsy way that some female directors struggle
I
to
know
walk
what
by.
you know what? I'm sorry to just cut this conversation in half and talk about this, but I feel like as a woman, I'm allowed to say this. But
Mhm.
I don't know who this podcast is gonna reach, but ladies, women directors, writers, we don't need to proclaim every other line how strong of a female or woman we are. It's just absolutely not necessary. You know what's better than saying? Doing, showing.
Exactly. And this movie does that.
It
This
does exceptional
it
well.
does it. It does it. It's made with so much craft and care and restraint.
Oh,
That's one so much restraint.
sexual tension is like insane.
Oh my goodness. This is like my mind was blown because it's a relationship. It's a movie about a relationship and there's a lot of sexual tension, but there is so much restraint. It never goes into that trashy or
And you know why, right? It's because there's an intellectual foundation established there.
well,
So these
absolutely.
characters are interested in getting to know each other. Heloise with, having to be sent off to marry some guy she doesn't know while simultaneously falling in love with the person who essentially is going to send her there. Like it's so beautiful. If you haven't seen this film, I urge you, I implore you to
Yeah,
see it on Valentine's Day, no less. This
absolutely.
it will be in theaters in the United States at least.
Yeah. And I think it should have been nominated for best foreign film.
Oh yeah. No, I mean this
Without,
is absolutely no shade to Parasite, of course, but to not have a nomination, I don't know what the hell Neon was doing when they did not, push for Portrait. I really don't. It's sad.
strange, strange. Okay, next I will talk about Light of My Life. Now, this is not the story is not very original, but neither is Marriage Story. Marriage Story is a bit of a rehash of Kramer versus Kramer, a movie I grew up on. Light of My Life is in the same vein as your post-apocalyptic journeyman taking care of a little, girl or transporting someone, and it's directed by and stars Casey Affleck, and that's the reason why it didn't get a big push. It didn't get any sort of marketing. It was just pushed out very quietly, and they just went about their business. But it's such an amazing film. The script is so layered and it folds on top of of itself beautifully in terms of themes that are set up and pay off later down the line. There's this meta device that they use where he has a dog. Basically, it's a world where um, there are no more like woman. There are no more woman children, no more female children.
Oh.
Basically, it's just men. So everything is basically like going to hell, and he has the last daughter.
Mm.
And so you know how valuable she is. They're in danger, so they go into isolation. Is trying to find a safe place to transport them to. Um, Her mother has died. All the women have died of illness, basically. And so every night he reads her a story, and that story kind of translates is a commentary on on her own hero's journey. And there's a tenderness between him and her. And there's talk about tension in terms of violence and danger. I had to stop. I'm a grown ass man. I had to stop watching. Like, I had to take a break from watching it because it got so tense at one point. It's a brilliant movie. The cinematography, absolutely brilliant. You need to watch it. Now the question is, can you dissociate the controversy, the sexual misconduct allegations that have been levied against Casey Affleck from his art? And if you can, you will enjoy the movie. If you can't, you might as well not see it. And it's kind of weird because also this is a movie about him protecting a woman, and it's basically has strong feminist undertones.
Yeah.
So it's kind of really like weird. And it's not like he made this as a response to that, like, oh, this is my penance for my Me Too situation. The movie was already in the works before all of that happened. So, it's strange. It was in my top 5 movies of 2019. Really, really good movie. I'd like to hear your opinion.
I have not seen this one, but it's certainly on my list now. It sounds very interesting.
Yeah. All right, so your turn. What else?
The one I've been asking you.
Oh my goodness. You guys have to hear this. So I swear, Brittany asked me like 10 times if I'd seen LUCE, and I had seen it. Every time we talk, he'd be like, oh, have you seen LUCE? I'm like, I've seen it, I swear.
In my defense, okay, let me just hold on. In my defense, this movie is just so exceptional. Like, I mean, I don't know how you ended up feeling about it, but like this movie
Let you know after.
It's one of those movies that first of all, let me just tell you a little bit of the background. So the movie is centered around this high school, about to be high school graduate Lupe, who grew up in this war-torn country of Eritrea, Africa, and he's been adopted by this white family in America. And so fast forward to high school, he seems to have been, he seems to have been grown up in sorry, I'm losing my words here. He seems to have been doing extremely well. He's a straight A student. He's a star athlete. I mean, essentially, he's the model student, and all his teachers love him. All the students love him. All his friends love him. But one fine day, his teacher assigns an assignment where he has to speak in the voice of anybody from history, and he decides to pick a figure who believes in violence to get their point across. And, one thing leads to another. And essentially, and I'm not going to spoil anything, I'm just going to stop right there. Essentially, this movie is mental madness, meaning like you don't know whose side you're on, you don't know what to believe. And it's so entertaining, but more importantly, there is a beautiful message in there saying, if you're a person of color, like there's a certain way you have to be, especially growing up in a country that obviously is predominantly white, or, goes one way versus the other. And it's just, how do I even like explain in 5 minutes? I don't know, but there's just so many great things about this movie that spoke to me, and hopefully a lot more people out there. And if not, the movie is on Hulu. If you don't personally have Hulu, I will let you borrow my password so you can watch this freaking movie, because it is one of the most underrated of the year. I'm not kidding when I say that.
All right. So this is how I felt about LUCE. When I watched LUCE, I had no idea that it had any sort of awards or prestige, or I just watched it just as a film.
You
Um,
watched it because I was
because
hounding
it passed
you.
through me, it's like I have to see this thing. Um, but what I'll say is the lead actor is brilliant. He is a young star because he's playing a very complex character, a character that has to transition between different modes.
Mhm.
We're talking
Kelvin
about.
Harrison, by the way.
Could you repeat that?
Kelvin Harrison Jr.
Calvin Harrison Jr. Get the name right. Let's get it out there. And I really hope he gets a lot more opportunities and gets cast in bigger stuff and goes, from strength to strength because he has the stuff. He's like leading man good looks. He's got the craft down pat. So that's the first good thing. Then, as you said, it's a very complex and layered script. It's not cliched in any way. It it's unsettling.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's very unusual, and you just don't. It constantly pulls the rug from under you, and even after you've seen it, you're not sure how to feel about some of the characters. And so those are two brilliant things about it. But apart from that, for me, I didn't feel a lot of the craftiness in the filmmaking. I didn't think that. I thought that the script and the story are very strong, and the acting by the lead actor, and obviously Naomi Watts is in it, and also the teacher. What's her name? Why am I forgetting? She's a great Olivia. Yes, Octavia Spencer, not Olivia. Olivia.
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness!
About Olivia Pope. Octavia Spencer. Obviously, she's a living legend. She's gonna go down as one of the all-time greats. So that trio, that trinity, that triumvirate, they're really like held it down in terms of the performances. But I felt that the director, I didn't think that he or she, I don't know who the director is, I didn't think they did a bad job. What'd you say?
Julius Ona.
Julius Ona. Okay, and
The last Cloverfield movie, right?
Mm, mm.
Listen,
Okay.
I feel like a lot of people are going to say like, "Oh, the Love Cloverfield movie," but this movie is something else. You guys have to watch it.
What I'll say is that he didn't do a bad job directing this, but I don't think he elevated it. Does that make
sense? Yeah.
I don't think he elevated it, and
that's fair.
So that's the only reason why I don't rank it as highly. But it's definitely a movie that stayed with me, and he did a decent job. So that's how I feel about LUCE. And yes, people should definitely watch it. I do feel that it deserved to get some more renown than it has.
It kind of makes me think about how people proclaim themselves to have liberal values, but then they go and do something or even say something that completely negates what they proclaim to have, and that's liberal values. And you guys will know exactly what I mean if you watch this movie. And you should watch this movie. It's on Hulu.
Okay. All right. So back to me. I will talk about Just Mercy. So Just Mercy, I'm quite surprised. I mean, it has gotten like nominations. I think it got some Golden Globes nominations. I think I should be sure about this. I do not want to say anything that's not true. Just Mercy. But obviously, it stars Jamie Foxx and Michael B. Jordan in. To me, this is Michael B. Jordan's best acting performance. I don't think
something.
Yeah, I don't think he's a very good actor.
I don't either.
That's just me.
I'm utterly not convinced by him.
I'm not. most of the time, but I think that this role, I think he played it well for me. For
Okay.
me, I'm just talking about for me. I think he played this role well. Jamie Foxx, he's always good, but I'm beginning to feel like Jamie Foxx does the same thing with slight variations in it. And this seemed like it was a little bit of the same thing. But the message of this is absolutely potent, absolutely relevant. It is heart wrenching and it's crazy that it's going on today. And it's about the criminal justice system, if you can call it justice.
What time period is it from?
Could you repeat that?
What time period is this from?
So it's from like the early 90s. So it goes through like late 80s, early 90s. And it's weird that the movie's called Just Mercy. I guess a very catchy and powerful name because it's about a man who's falsely incarcerated, falsely put on death row. Forget incarceration. He's falsely put on death row and is facing, execution and is saved by this Harvard lawyer who, comes back to his hometown to do pro bono work for inmates who are falsely, accused and railroaded into death row. And so I felt like I know it's a nitpick, but it's a serious one because I'm thinking like this is not about mercy. You can't have mercy on someone who's innocent. Like that's it like through the whole movie that was just really jarring to me that these are not people that you should think of judges or the system having mercy on. They shouldn't even be there in the first place. But it's a very powerful movie. It's based on a true story, and the attorneys they're continuing the work to this day. They're getting people off death row. So very powerful message. However, just like with LUCE, the directing does not elevate the powerful acting performances, the good scripts, the powerful message. The directing holds it back. It does feel a little bit TV-ish. And that's quite unfortunate. And so Just Mercy, people should see it. For those reasons, definitely.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. Now back to you.
Speaking of death row movies, I just have to throw one more out there that I think is significantly underrated throughout 2019. I saw it at the 2019 Sundance Film Festival. It is called Clemency, and it stars Alfre Woodard, and it is just, it is cruelly underrated. Like, this just flew by under the radar, and like nobody watched it, and it makes me so mad. And a lot of it is because, sorry?
No, I was laughing because it makes you mad.
Oh, I'm glad you're laughing at my misery. But it's just like, so pardon me if I'm pronouncing her name incorrectly, but it's directed by Chinonye Chukwu, I think her name is.
You got it right. Like I'm Nigerian born. That's a Nigerian name. So you got it kind of.
Kind of. But it's just it's also, so this is on the flip, it's kind of on the lines of Just Mercy. It's about a warden who monitors death row inmates, and she oversees basically the final killing of these inmates. It's an emotional journey for sure.
That's heavy. And Alfre Woodard, she's fantastic. She is.
I cannot believe.
Good.
I know exactly why her name has not come up during this award season, is because I know these people have not seen this movie. Let's be honest. But
okay, wow, that's a strong statement. Only because they haven't seen it.
Look, they haven't even seen the nominees. Like,
so before we go on, in your opinion, why do some movies get the awards recognition? Why do they get the awards push? And why? I mean, at the end of the day, shouldn't it just be about the quality of the work? What is the disconnect?
I think a lot of it is on the studio. I mean, so Neon put out two of the best movies of the year, Parasite and Portrait of a Lady on Fire. People saw Parasite and they latched on to it. A couple people saw Portrait and they loved it, but since the majority of everybody was already latched on to Parasite, Neon put it in their head. They said, okay, like this is our winner. This is our clear cut. They didn't even push Portrait of a Lady on Fire on their international award. So I think a lot of it is the studio not pushing their movies forward when they deserve to be. They simply latch on to one movie that's getting the popular vote and that's getting all of the hoopla of award season, and they neglect to push any of the others forward.
Okay. That's sad because Portrait is the bomb. All right.
I feel like Portrait is always going to be my reference point of
yeah.
say.
Real talk.
So sorry in advance. Actually, I'm not sorry because that movie is phenomenal.
Not sorry at all. You shouldn't. Portrait is dope. A lot of my life is dope, but Portrait is something else. Portrait is something else.
If any of Portrait Nation is listening now, shout out to y'all.
There you go. That's it. Do you want to talk about Last Black Man in San Francisco? I feel we should. That's a weird movie. That's a weird movie.
It is weird.
A24 at it again.
Yeah, it's kind of on brand for them though. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
You know what? I first saw this at the 2019 Sundance Film Festival as well, and I didn't actually fall in love with it at all as much as everybody else did. Mm-hmm. But then I thought about it, and then I got to see it again later in the year. And what's his name? Oh dear God, the director. This is his first feature, by the way.
Yeah. It's directed by a white guy. I mean, I thought it'd be directed by a black guy because it's centered around black characters.
Yeah. Joseph is director. Yes, it is directed by a white guy. But yeah, I didn't completely like it, or not like it. I didn't love it as much as everybody else did. But then I actually took a breath, sat down, and watched it again, and realized how beautiful it was in discussing not only the relationship between two black men, because I'm talking to you again, Twitter. People love to see when they see two black men forming a friendship like this, they automatically like, oh, that's gay. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's very prevalent in the black community. Like, I'm not even lying. Like black men is posted these two guys on screen and they think like, oh, that's gay. But these guys are not gay. They're just very much best friends, and they are very in love with their city, San Francisco. But the movie shows how emotionally gripping the idea of what's the word I'm looking for? Oh dear God. You know what I'm looking for?
Yeah, I feel like I'm following you. It's something about
gentrification. There we go.
Yes, gentrification.
It shows how gentrification can really, really mess up not only your love for the city, but like almost takes a little bit out of you, takes a piece out of you, and
it's like it's part of your identity, your family history, your lineage. It's where you belong. When you're uprooted from it, something is missing, and it's a longing and a yearning that you can't, even if it's just an idea, even if it isn't real,
right?
It's powerful. It's a pull, and it's almost like a magnetic pull that you can't get away from. And yeah, through the weirdness, there is that beautiful message. The movie to me was it was just weird to me. There's no other way to describe it.
And I do think that the movie unfortunately suffers from that stage play feel. And that might be weird to say, especially for those who actually saw the film, considering they actually put on a stage play within the film. But I think it kind of suffers from that kind of vibe. But you know, at the end of the day, I still liked it. I still think as a first feature length film, like Talbot like knocked it out of the park for sure.
As a first feature, I was utterly impressed. One thing that stuck with me, even though I do not understand it at all, the last image where he's rowing a boat.
You had to remind rowing a boat. Oh man.
He's throwing a boat in the water, and it's just striking. I have no idea what it means, why it's there. There's almost no reference anywhere, but he's rowing a boat in the water, and the waves are, you know, taking the boat back and forth, and it's beautiful. It's in slow motion, and it just sticks with you. Like, wow, that's a powerful image, and it just ends. That's the end of the movie. I don't understand what it must mean something, but I don't understand what it means. But well, those were our favorite films of the year. None of them were nominated for Oscars.
Those are underrated ones for sure.
Yeah, underrated, yeah. They still mean a lot to us, and they're very powerful movies. If you haven't seen them, I can't highly recommend them enough. I trust your opinion, and the ones that you recommended, I'm definitely going to see. Clemency, you recommended. Which other one did you recommend that I haven't seen? I think Clemency is probably the only one that I haven't seen. We talked about Portrait, Last Black Man in San Francisco, A Lot of My Life.
So I won't bother you about that anymore.
Please don't. Okay. So guys, try to see those. Trust us, they're really, really, really good movies. All right. So without further ado, let's just dive right into our Oscar preview, and let's get right to the meat on the bones. So first off, do you like watching the Oscars? What's your experience with the Oscars?
To be honest, I haven't watched the Oscars in like 5 years.
Plot twist.
Is it a plot twist? I just sat here and told you that like awards kind of mean shit to me. Right, am I allowed to say that?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Come on, this is adult.
Yeah, I mean, I said these awards don't really mean that much to me. Like they don't hold weight. I'm gonna like what I like. I'm gonna not like what I don't like. You know, like So yeah, I haven't watched them in 5 years, mostly because I just don't watch TV anymore. But also, it's like I can find out the winners right on the internet, right on my Twitter feed, because you know everybody's either upset or they're really happy. You know?
Or everybody's upset.
Or everybody's like, so and so was snubbed, like yet again. It's like, okay, we get it.
Give Amy Adams her Oscar. Every year we're gonna have another Amy Adams riot thinking on Twitter. But yeah, I kind of tend to agree with you in terms of the only reasons why I pay attention to the telecast itself are one, the fashion, because I'm into fashion. It's a bit of my background. And just to find out who won, to see if like the movies that I feel deserve to get that, you know, that recognition and that acclaim, if they get it. Then sometimes some speeches are quite nice. Some people give moving speeches. Some people give socially relevant speeches. I like those. But then also if there's a good host or hostess, I tune in. But there hasn't been one in a while. I watched the one with Chris Rock and it was hit or miss. He had like that tasteless joke about like Asians, but the rest of it was really, really funny. So for what do you think that they need to do for ratings? So you haven't been watching for the past 5 years. What do you think they need to do? Do they need to make Avengers a Best Picture nomination? Do they have to bring in the popular movie category, or what can they do?
I think it's about time that these award shows listen to the fans, right? Like, these are the people who are watching your show, and these are the exact same people that if you don't give them what they want, they're gonna really start to tune out. So that means adding in best stunt crew as an Oscar contender. Adding in, you know what? Maybe this isn't as widely, desired, but I think adding in best women director and male director, I think it's a thing. It's about, we separate actress and actors.
Yeah.
Why not? If you're not gonna put in more women directors, just add in an entire category to show, hey, we at least kind of care,
I absolutely agree with that. That's a discussion I've had with people. There should be best male director and best female director. As you said, there's already best actor, best actress. I think that's a smart way to go, because we can segue a little bit into the controversy of no female directors have been nominated for best director this year. A lot of people are upset about that, and I feel it's systemic, because obviously the bulk of the great directors have been male, and they've had years and years and years to hone their craft. We're talking to people like Lawrence Scafaria, who did Hustlers, competing against Martin Scorsese and Quentin Tarantino, and it's not fair, but it's a systemic thing. It has nothing to do with I don't think it has anything to do with a bias at this point. And you have to find ways to get around systemic discrimination, and a way to do that, to proactively do that, would be to create a best female director category, because I do feel it will be an injustice to everyone, to the craft of filmmaking, to the filmmakers who deserve it, and even a bit to women, just to include women in best directors just because. So although I do feel, to be honest, I do feel that some women actually could have been nominated.
Oh,
actually. I actually do feel so. I actually do feel so, because
no, I'm right there with you. Yeah. But even probably my most wanted category is actually best first time director. Year after year we get an actor or actress who finally goes behind the camera for their first feature, or even at these film festivals, they present their first feature, and it's mind-blowing. They show up and they show out. Like, they really need to get this the category, because oh man, I've seen some great first time features. Sure.
Or they should make best director 10 nominees.
Yeah, that'll be a way in too. Exactly. Yeah. Here's the thing, like, there's so many options that many of us fans have come up with, and the Academy, their nose is so high in the sky, they can't see any of us down here.
Yeah, they really need to get it together. So what do you think about the awards having no host?
I don't care. if it helps it go by faster, great. I don't really care about the performers. I don't really care about I'm a very not hoopla kind of girl. Give me the award winners. That's it.
If Kevin Hart was the host, how would you feel about the ceremony?
Wouldn't bat an eye. Like I said, I don't watch them.
Dang. No, I would love to see Kevin Hart host it. I would. I think he's very charismatic. I don't think he's the funniest guy. I think his talent is actually telling stories and doing stuff like hosting. I think that's where he's actually at his best. I
You
think
know
he'll
what?
bring.
Actually, like this year, I think well, I don't know if it was this year or last year, but I think Kevin Hart is slowly moving towards like becoming a really good actor because I'll tell you why. His first role I saw, or not first role, but the first role that I was really paying attention to him was oh dear
So
God.
plain, so
Huh?
plain, so plain.
No, not so plain. Oh my goodness. That please. No, it was the one with what was the name? Oh my gosh, I cannot believe I'm forgetting this. This
Are you
just came out
talking
last
about
year. The Upside. The Upside.
The Upside?
You see
Oh
that?
yeah, yeah, yes, yes,
I think
yes. I
Bryan
haven't seen it.
Cranston was in that, right? Yeah,
I haven't.
Bryan Cranston was in that.
Yeah,
I thought Kevin Hart did really good in that movie.
really. Was there comedy to his performance, or
Yeah,
was it
there
just straight?
was a little bit of comedy, but it was mostly it was mostly a drama. Yeah, the
Okay.
comedy drama. Yeah, and I thought he did really good. And then you're gonna laugh. The listeners are gonna laugh. But in the second Jumanji movie that recently came out,
Oh, I
he
used
had
come
to, no,
on.
he had to play a very serious role because he swapped bodies with
Danny Glover.
Danny Glover's character. And because usually Kevin Hart's like the hype man, he's like, the obnoxious one, the one who's always got the joke. But he had to tone it all the way down. And he was able to do that without like not batting an eye. So like I feel like we're just waiting. We're waiting for his awakening where he's gonna break through and really show that he's a good actor. Also, you know who's the really good actor, by the way? I'm sorry, I'm so off topic. Meek Mill. Meek fucking Mill.
What is going on? What is going on here?
Sorry for going off topic. Meek Mill is a great actor. Charm City Kings. I saw Charm City Kings at the 2020 Sundance Film Festival just last week. Meek Mill proved that he is a force to be reckoned with.
What is going on here?
Don't worry about what's going on. Just listen to me, people. When I say Meek Mill is a great actor.
Oh my God. I think my brain has melted. First off, sorry, Kevin Hart. I was like, all right.
Okay, for the record, I said Kevin Hart is like getting there, but Meek Mill
is a great actor.
Okay. When you see Charm City Kings, you're just you know what? After this is all said and done, go on Twitter, look up Meek Mill, and then also search with his name Charm City Kings, and you will see every critic that saw that movie is giving him praise, including myself, obviously.
Okay. All right.
You heard it here first, folks. You heard it here first.
That's the word. So
anyways,
let's get right into the awards, and we'll talk about the nominees and if we agree, if we disagree, and what movies we think should win. So we'll start with Best Visual Effects. So the nominees for Best Visual Effects are Avengers Endgame, The Irishman, The Lion King, 1917, and Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. Do you want to start off and tell us?
I'll be honest, I don't like none of these choices.
Dang! not a single one.
Said, I don't know what the hell I would insert and take like 4 of these in lieu of these, but none of these hitting.
All right, you know what I'll say. I like The Irishman, The Lion King, 1917. I feel like Avengers Endgame is inserted there because there's a huge blockbuster. You put it in to get fans to watch. That's a ratings boost. I feel same thing with. They always do this for Star Wars. They find a way to just wedge it in there somehow. I don't think that it deserves to be there. You know what deserves to be there? Godzilla, King of the Monsters.
Yes,
It had
I
the
agree with that.
bomb visual effects.
Absolutely.
Crazy. One of the most epic, large scale, had all the elements, whether it was like desert and fire, or it was ice and water, and everything looked believable, and it was breathtaking. The visual effects were absolutely breathtaking, but it's not a popular movie, so the Oscars decided not to honor it, and I feel like it should, at least it should be there instead of.
You got to blame a little bit the studio. The studio is the one who has to submit them. Remember?
Very true. But then I feel like 1917, because a lot of the stuff that they did with making it a oneer, the entire film basically a one shot, has to do with visual effects and cutting things together and fake backdrops and that kind of stuff to make everything flow seamlessly. So it may not seem on the surface like a great visual effects film, but low key it is. The Lion King, it looks like a taxidermy project. That's what I call it. It looks like they stuffed animals because they just look dead. There's like a dead look in their eyes.
Well, why is it on this list?
Because I mean, you can't. You the thing about the cartoon is that because it's a cartoon, you're able to what's the word, anthropomorphize, however you say it, to make them more human-like and give them more expressions, more complex expressions than animals actually have. Animals don't smile. That's not what they do. They don't smile. They don't frown. They just do shit. And so when you have like this movie and you're trying to make it really lifelike, and they're talking and they just look dead. It's like you're happy, but your face is like kind of like dead. And so that's why I say it's just like the most expensive taxidermy project in the history of man. And then the Irishman, I really like the visual effects. I know some people had problems with it. There was probably only one scene that I felt it didn't stand up, and that was when Robert De Niro's character was really young in the army. That was the only one that looked fake. But apart from that, through a lot of it, I couldn't tell. I couldn't place like, is this VFX or not VFX? So I think that they actually did a brilliant job. And overall, personally, of these ones, I would award it to 1917, because that movie. We're going to talk more about it. I'm not going to blow my whole clip on it right now.
12 more to get through.
But I would award it to 1917 for making that entire one shot seamless. What about you? If you were forced to pick out of these?
Yeah, I would go with 1917 or Irishman.
I agree. Okay. So the next is best costume design. I will let you take this one. The nominees are The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, Joker, Little Woman, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. The only one I haven't seen is Little Woman, so go ahead and.
I mean, I guess these are good. Guys, I'm so bad at this. I'm so sorry. The way I see it about costume design, I think about if the characters in the films were wearing regular clothes, would that take me out of the film? And the truth is, it wouldn't really take me out of The Irishman because, like, mobsters wear jeans sometimes, I wouldn't know. And Little Women, like, they could get away with wearing regular skirts, that wouldn't take me out of it. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, definitely not. They could still wear jeans and a t-shirt. Now it comes down to Jojo Rabbit and Joker. Joker, it's definitely more about makeup because he can certainly wear, his just a regular suit. So I'm gonna have to give it, no matter what I feel about the film, I'm gonna give it to Jojo Rabbit. I really am.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Process of elimination.
uh, for me, the way I look at costume design is how crafty was it? How far did the designer or whoever was in charge of costumes have to stretch themselves to create, to design, to create, and to convey the looks. I haven't seen Little Women. It's the kind of film that, in my mind, I suspect would win, and usually, like Renaissance era period pieces usually do because of very elaborate, costumes. I agree with you that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I mean, it's not that far back a period piece, and the clothing items are not that far removed from what anyone can wear today. Same thing with the Irishman. So between Jojo Rabbit and Joker, I didn't find Jojo Rabbit's costumes to be. I mean, they are wartime costumes, but I just didn't find them to be that spectacular. I'm sure they have them lying about somewhere in some warehouse in Hollywood. You can borrow them for like
Fair enough.
We've seen them in a bunch of movies. But the thing about Joker is that it's not about the costumes of the entire cast. It just boils down to that single character. And if that particular costume captivated your mind and was iconic enough, and I feel it was, because to me, like, Joker just completely blew my mind. Joaquin Phoenix costume, his makeup, his hair, the way. I mean, I guess part of it has to do with his acting as well, how he wears it. I would give it to Joker. I would, because that costume, it just iconic, and it's always gonna be. Yeah. So there you have it. So next up, we will talk about best makeup and hair, and quite similar to this one: Bombshell, Joker, Judy, Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, and 1917. What are your thoughts?
I feel like I'm gonna be hated for the following statement, but this is a category I just don't give a damn about. I really don't. Okay. I'm so sorry to all the makeup artists out there, the hairstylists, but I just.
That's hilarious. All right. So we'll
I'm gonna let you. With that being said, I'm gonna let you take it.
All right. Okay. I'll be very quick with it. I think for what they did for Charlize Theron to turn her into, I'm forgetting her name, the Fox.
Megan. What's her name?
Glad it's good that we don't remember her name. Yes. I would award it. I would actually award it to Bombshell. But I'm actually quite happy that they nominated Maleficent. I've actually seen that, and yeah, I did. I saw it in theaters. We actually have a review of it on our YouTube channel, on the Film Exiles YouTube channel. And yes, very intricate makeup and hair. And usually the Oscars would go for something popular. They'd go for like Avengers Endgame or Star Wars movie. And for them to pick something like this, although it's also a Disney movie, and there's that host of problems there, but I'm glad that they did. It shows an open-mindedness that they don't always show. So, well, since you passed that to me, I'll let you go with best original score. So we have Joker, that's by Hildur Goodnitter, I think that's her name. Little Woman, Marriage Story, 1917, and Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker.
Listen, I really, okay, actually, there's one score that I just don't know anything about in Star Wars. And I'm not about to apologize for that to the listeners. Sorry. Actually,
you don't need to. The score wasn't exceptional. It was just it's a typical Star Wars score. Don't worry about it. Honestly, I don't even know why it would be there. It makes completely no sense to me. When Ad Astra is alive and kicking, the score for Ad Astra is phenomenal by Max Richter. It's that score is I listen to it to this day. It's like operatic. It's like cathedral sort of score.
Mm-hmm.
Way better than this rehashed, remixed Star Wars stuff that we see every 2 years, honestly. But go ahead.
Fair enough. So the way I judge original scores is not necessarily what elevates a particular scene, but what makes me hone in on the feelings that I'm feeling within a scene. Okay. With that being said, I'm going to automatically X out Marriage Story. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love this script. I love the acting. I love almost everything about Marriage Story. But if I think there's one weakness that I think it has, and I think it's the score. Even though I think it's still good. So it's a weird thing to say. So now it comes down to 1917 Joker and Little Women. Little Women, I also think it's good, but it's just not memorable for me. Like, I can't play a song and immediately go to a scene and say, damn, I remember that. Mm-hmm. So now it comes down to Joker in 1917, and trust me when I say this is an incredibly difficult decision. And right now, I'm actually just going to say one name randomly because that's how much I love these films. I'm talking about immediately coming out of the film, playing the score every single day after I've seen this movie. And I've done it equally for both Joker and 1917. Actually, I can't choose. I can't. You won't make you can't make me do it.
You know what? It's funny because I'll let you speak because I completely agree with you. The score for 1917 actually caught me off guard. I don't know, probably because I followed Joker a bit more. And I was, Joker was on the awards circuit before it hit theaters, and the director talked about the work that the composer did and all that. So I was anticipating a good score. And also, to be fair, DC does a good job with their scores. Warner Brother and DC, they do quite so. You can always anticipate that you should probably pay attention to the score. In 1917, I had no idea. Just went in, blind. I was expecting the other parts of the film to shine, and the score blew me away.
Right. That's why I'm struggling.
Absolutely.
I'm struggling.
I agree with you. It's very difficult for me to pick one over the other. I think if it was up to me, I would pick one just because I give the other one an award in another category to sort of make up for it in this category. So since we're not doing that, we don't have to pick, and we'll just say Joker in 1917, a tie. They're both excellent, and it wouldn't be fair to pick either one.
Cool.
Yeah, that good. Okay.
All right, perfect.
Cool. Next, we talk about best production design, and that has to do with like sets, set dressing, that whole sort of stuff. So we have The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, 1917, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Parasite. So, what do you think?
Oh God. So I'm going to go ahead and just automatically eliminate 3 of these.
Okay.
And that's 1917. It breaks my heart because I'm like a 1917 fan. Like when it won Golden Globes and everybody was pissed, I was right here on Twitter with my Twitter thumbs. Like, y'all better shut up because 1917 is that bitch. I was there, but unfortunately, I'm going to eliminate it. Jojo Rabbit, I'm going to eliminate. and it pains me, but I'm gonna eliminate the Irishman as well. That brings
Yeah, the Irishman is just, it's like a typical New York.
yeah. So that brings me to Once Upon a Time and Parasite.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know what I want to choose. I'm not even gonna beat around the bush. I'm gonna choose Once Upon a Time.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah, buddy. Everything in this movie just like brought. I mean, I of course wasn't born during this era, but
I mean, we all know black don't crack, but I mean, but that would be a stretch.
I had to conjure up what this era would look like. Like I can't possibly have thought in my mind something like what Barbara did. So like I am all in, like all of my cards, all of my chips are in on Once Upon a Time. That being said, the production design on Parasite is phenomenal. Like no shade to Lee at all. Like I still very much love Parasite. But there's just something about Once Upon a Time where I was envisioning myself on set and I was like, this rocks. So
I'll make the case for Parasites. I think with Parasite, it's not as elaborate or transportive as Once Upon a Time, but I think that it's layered and it tells a story and it works with the themes of the movie on a very on a deeper level. So we're talking about how the difference in the wealth and financial status of both families. We're talking about how one of the families is located on a hill and the other is located, at the bottom of a hill. And, we're talking about how, when it rains, the water trickles down and, trickle down economics and all that stuff. We're talking about inside the house, the basement, having, the upper class people and the lower class people. And so all those elements of production design are story driven. And I think that's where Parasite shines, in having all these thematic and story driven aspects and elements to it. So that's the case I would make for
100%. I just had to go with my gut on that one. There's something about Once Upon a Time that like I just love the production on that one. I really do.
It's turned, like, Once Upon a Time is almost not fair. Because and the Irishman as well, because these are, Tarantino and Scorsese, these are two of like the greatest directors of all time. That's why you're seeing their films like pop up again and again and again and again, and it's a little bit tiring, but it's like the Patriots winning the Super Bowl all the time. I freaking hate it, and it's boring, but they just dominate. Or like Jordan winning all those titles, or Kobe winning scoring titles. But these guys,
did you really bring up Kobe?
Yeah, I did. I had to get Kobe in there. He was an Oscar winner as well. Yeah, we'll move on to the next one. So we talked about the sound mixing and sound editing, and I honestly don't know a huge difference between the two. And so sound mixing, we have Ad Astra. Finally, they throw Ad Astra a bone. Ad Astra is my second favorite film of 2019. Ford v Ferrari, Joker 1917, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So I'll take this one. And
actually, before you start, I'll just give like my little spiel on the difference between mixing and editing, if you don't mind.
Please.
Okay. So, somebody out there, correct me if I'm wrong, if you're a professional sound mixer or editor, but I think editing is bringing all the sounds together. So that's the external sounds, as well as the voiceovers, as well as the music, or whatever it is that obviously involves sound. You put it in a certain order,
Mm-hmm.
and you have that. But where the mixing comes in is you're making sure that one is not louder than the other. So if you have music playing in the background, you're making sure that you can still hear the actors and the actresses speak, and that music is not overpowering what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, that's a very, very simple, and and I like that. That really explains it. And so at Astra, Ford v Ferrari, this is for sound mixing, Joker, 1917, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Now, I do not know what Joker is doing in there, to be honest. Like, I guess the sounds of New York and whatever crowds, and I think that this is just one of those. Joker is such an excellent movie that we're gonna, give it all the awards. But really, Joker should not be in there. I can't think of what movie I'd replace it with, to be quite honest, but it shouldn't be in there. I don't think that it was particularly noticeable. But the movie that I think, and also Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, why is it in there? 1917, definitely a feat in sound mixing. Ford v Ferrari, the sound mixing on that, I noticed immediately, because we're talking about the engines, the sound of the wind when the cars like race by, competing sounds of cars, when one is like passing or coming up close. If there's a problem with the engine, hearing that change in the sound, like all of that serves to stir your emotions and direct you in a particular way to feel, whether it's thrilling and it's giving you goosebumps, or fear and you're scared that something's going to happen, the car's going to explode and someone is going to die or lose a race or something like that. And the sound mixing in Ford v Ferrari was absolutely fantastic, and it gave me goosebumps. It was a vital component in telling that story. So that's the one I'd give it to. What do you think?
Nice. I'm kind of go completely agreeant with you. The one that I'm just like, what the hell is this doing on here is Once Upon a Time, to be honest.
Yeah.
But maybe these Academy voters are well versed in sound mixing.
Yeah, maybe. All
No,
right.
I'm agreeing with you with the Ford versus Ferrari for sure.
Yeah. Sound editing. So Ford versus Ferrari again, Joker again. Okay. 1917, Once Upon a Time again. Basically, like pretty much the same movies, apart from that Ad Astra isn't in editing, and instead we have Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. What do you think?
I kind of want to go with 1917.
Same.
The all the background war zone type of atmosphere in terms of sound is what gave me the most anxiety about this movie.
Yeah.
Like we know he's racing against the clock to get to where he needs to get to stop the war from continuing, but it's those planes that go over his head, and it's the shot background, and it's all these sounds that are far away and out of sight are what really, like, oh man, make it the ideas of war, and it makes the anxieties of war so powerful in this movie. And I just yes.
And we also have to remember that they had to do this with the constraints of, if you see the way the movie is shot, it's not shot in your conventional way. They're like racing with cars and moving and switching camera. So capturing sound on set is something that they could barely do. So the editing had to be like a monumental feat to make it feel natural.
Natural.
So yeah, definitely 1917,
Mhm.
without a doubt. That's the one I picked for this. All right. So next, film editing: Ford v Ferrari, The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, Joker, and Parasite. What do you think?
Uh,
I mean, before you go ahead, I'm just gonna say, why isn't 1917 on here?
I don't
What
know.
is going on? Like, am I missing something? Because
I mean, I'm wondering if the Academy voters were like, "Oh, there wasn't much editing to do," and I'm putting editing in quotations for the listeners. But
they
I,
did they didn't shoot that movie in 2 hours. They shot it over like months.
yeah,
That film
I don't know. I don't know.
heavily edited,
But
heavily.
I'm actually, I'm actually gonna pick the Irishman for this one. I really am.
One, yeah, yeah, that's a good one, because to weave the narrative of all the years and all that stuff.
Not only that, but people, people have been complaining about like, oh, this movie is so long, blah blah blah. But Scorsese and Thelma, really, the way it was directed and the way it was edited, they really set the audience up perfectly to stop it at certain moments. And the way
Mm,
it was put together, like, I don't know, it was very cohesive for me. Like even in the flash forwards and the flashback, like I found it
yeah.
very cohesive and very on point in terms of executing, the past versus the present. And like, I don't know. I love this. I love this movie. It's my second favorite movie of the year.
Very
I love
true. Very true. I would gravitate towards Ford v Ferrari because there's a lot of cutting. Um, but with your argument, I think I would go the Irishman. I think I would go the Irishman.
Lola.
Yeah, I think you made a very good argument, to look at film editing on a deeper level rather than the surface
Mhm.
flash. And there's a lot of flash in Ford v Ferrari to make those racing scenes work. But yeah, the Irishman is doing a lot on a deeper level, to make that story work. So yes, I agree with you. The Irishman. Okay, so next up, best international feature film. Now we can both talk about this a little bit. We haven't seen most of these. As we all know, Portrait of a Lady on Fire should be here. This is where it should be. I haven't seen most of these films. I have seen Parasite, and I absolutely adored Parasite. One thing that's very interesting to talk about, that I talked about in my Parasite review, is that it's so similar to Joker. It's scary. They're both about class.
Mhm.
They're both about class warfare. And they both take the side of obviously of the many versus the few, and they're about how the inequality of society can turn us into monsters of a sort. And then at the end of Parasite, the guy gets a disorder where he's laughing. Remember that? At the
Yeah.
end of Parasite, yeah, he gets a disorder where he can't help but laugh. It freaked me out. I was like, wait, these movies were actually like made at about the same time. There's no way either of them could have copied each other, and they're saying the same thing, which shows that obviously, you know, wealth inequality and class discrimination and class warfare is very, it's very concerning in these times. I mean, it's what Bernie Sanders is running on. It's what um, it's what Donald Trump ran on. It just inverted it and twisted it in his own way. That's my personal opinion, whatever. But it's quite interesting that worldwide, this is an issue because this is an American film.
Mhm.
So it's an issue worldwide, and I thought that Parasite just did a brilliant job tackling it in so many different ways. There's so many, just it's a multi-syllabic film, and I really like it.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I really, really. So I've only seen 3 of these: Honeyland, Pain and Glory, and Parasite.
Mm.
And I mean, I'm gonna give it to Parasite. Like it is truly exceptional body of work from Bong. I do really, really love Pain and Glory though. But yeah, and we know if Portrait was on here, I would give it to Portrait, but it's
Yeah.
not. But Parasite,
I
it truly deserves all the accolades that it's getting for sure.
I do prefer Parasite to Portrait. I would say that to our audience, but no, but it's that they're not far apart. Honestly, Portrait is that good. Honestly, it is, and you should do yourself the favor of watching. Treat yourself well. Watch Portrait of a Lady on Fire. All right. Best. Go ahead. What you say?
I said it's out Valentine's Day.
Yeah. Perfect. All right. Best cinematography. This is one of my favorite categories. Honestly, I'm a very visual person. I always have been. And so I'm in love with cinematography. I'm in love with cinematographers, and so I'm excited to talk about this one. I'm excited to see who wins for real. So the nominees, and you take this one, are The Irishman, Joker, The Lighthouse, 1917, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. What are your thoughts?
First of all, I would like to say that Portrait of a Lady on Fire deserves to be on this list.
Of course, and I concur.
Sounding like a broken record at this point, but I'm only speaking my truth. But I'm gonna go with what may seem like an upset to most people. Even though I love me some Roger Deakins, I am absolutely gonna go with The Lighthouse by Jaron Bleshke.
All right, I haven't seen The Lighthouse, so I can't speak on it. I haven't. I'm going to, but just from seeing trailers and seeing stills, it looks like this is something else.
My goodness.
It looks like it's something else.
Something else. It's out of this world, otherworldly. It's remarkable.
Wow. All right. My contribution to this one, I've heard people talk about Joker for cinematography, and I don't see it. I'm sorry. I like obviously it's my favorite film of last year, but the cinematography isn't particularly special to me. Maybe it's my eyes. The Irishman has really good image quality in terms of Scorsese shooting on 35 mm, and there is red is a very potent color in the film. It's one of the in the color palette of the film. It's very well done in that regard. The film that's missing from here, Ad Astra. It's a crime that Ad Astra is not. Maybe the Academy is bored of seeing space movies and that sort of 2001: Space Odyssey visual language, but Ad Astra was absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous. Hoyt van Hoytma, I mean, at it again, and he made it different from Interstellar. I mean, it's space, so it's space is what it is, but it's different. Like the reds in Mars, and then when they got to what was the planet? Was it Uranus? Why am I forgetting the final planet? It wasn't Saturn. It was blue, and I had never seen a like just entire blue color blocking of like planets in space. That was brand new in sort of like the visual language of space movies. I just absolutely adore that movie. And then we have 1917. And in terms of a one take, that's cinematography. Cinematography is not just how pictures look, it's also about how the camera moves. And in terms of moving the camera to make sure that, you're capturing these your subjects and the action that's going on continually, and using clever tricks to weave everything together. That is cinematography. And to be sincere, I don't think the 1917 story is particularly amazing or a huge feat when you think about other war movies and things that people had to go through. But when you're watching it, you just feel like you're watching a feat in filmmaking. Like, this is something that has never been done before, is exceptionally hard, and you're witnessing it for the first time. It's not the first one take movie ever, but something this big, and it's war, there's explosions, there's so I'd say Astra should have been on this list as a nomination, and on this list I'd award it to 1917. But I haven't seen The Lighthouse, so people have to consider that. Yeah, true. Okay, best original screenplay, we have Knives Out by Rian Johnson, Marriage Story by Noam Baumbach. We have 1917 by Sam Mendes and Christy Wilson Cairns. We have Once Upon a Time in Hollywood by QT, and we have Parasite by Bong Joon-ho and Han Jin-won. So what do you think of best original screenplay? What do you think of the nominees?
I love these nominees. I really do.
All right.
And as badly as I wanted to give it to Parasite, I really, really want to give it to Knives Out. I really do.
Really?
I really do.
It's interesting because watching Knives Out, I did think, wow, like this is an original, quote unquote. This is like quite original, and I like the twists and turns, but I don't know whether I see it as Oscar worthy. I don't know.
That's okay.
I don't think it is. To me. 1917, I don't think it's a very meaty screenplay. But maybe what makes it special is that you have to make it work as a one take. I thought that was very difficult because the movie doesn't happen over the 2-hour period of the film. You have to, stretch it out, but at the same time, it's still a one take. That's very clever how they're able to dilate the time, because it happens over like almost a day. It's not a full day. It's like from afternoon till like the next morning, something like that, maybe 18 hours or something. But yeah, so that was actually like very clever of them to be able to dilate the time in that way. So that's the reason why, because it's not a very meaty or particularly clever screenplay apart from that element. Once Upon a Time, obviously, Quentin Tarantino and screenplays, it's like peanut butter and jelly. It's just, if he writes a screenplay, he's going to get nominated because his dialogue is just out of this world. Parasites, we all know Parasite, multi-layered. Marriage Story has a really, 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 really good screenplay. Although I have other problems with it, we'll talk about that more. Not problems, but Knives Out is the only one that I don't feel it belongs. Sorry to say.
That's okay. I really like the undertones of what's her character's name? Ana de Armas's character.
Yeah, Ana de Armas character. I can't remember.
Yeah, but anyways, I like how it plays on that whole immigrant story of and then like how the family, they always said like, oh, we wanted you to come to the funeral, or you've always been a part of the family, but when it really mattered after the fact, when they found out that, oh, okay, well, here's your chance. She is really a part of the family. She's a part of the will. They backtrack. So this is kind of going back to what LUCE did in their screenplay, how people proclaim to have these liberal values and be accepting of people. But then all of a sudden, when you got to put your money where you got to put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden, nowhere to be found.
Yeah, it did have very many clever elements. There's one thing I find interesting about the film. So after it, debuted at TIFF, it was TIFF. A lot of critics were, it was TIFF. Yeah, a lot of critics were quick to proclaim that Rian Johnson slams alt-right, alt-right like racist bigots or whatever, because one of the characters in the movie represents, if you remember, it's the son, who they make fun of him like as a Nazi or whatever. Yeah. But the movie also has a character who represents like neoliberal SJW left extremists at the same time. So I thought that was very clever of him to represent so many groups and have commentary and critiques on all of them in a very egalitarian way. I did appreciate that. I thought that was clever. So I can't give it.
Family, the dynamic was like
it was really
writing that down on paper and really getting it to come out on screen as well as it did. Oh yeah.
And after watching that, I came to a conclusion. People like Rian Johnson, like Zack Snyder, like Guy Ritchie, you have to see The Gentleman. If you haven't seen it, you rush to see The Gentleman.
I've been away at Sundance. I haven't seen it.
True, you need to see it. But artists like Rian Johnson, Zack Snyder, Guy Ritchie, they should not do franchise filmmaking. They should leave franchise filmmaking to, I'll just put it as the guys who make franchise films. They are too good. They're too original. They are such a treasure to us in terms of like what they bring to original screenplays, which are already rare. And I just feel like they should never make franchise films again, period. I know a lot of people want to see Zack Snyder, come back to the DC. But no, I feel Zack Snyder should just go and just make original films. Guy Ritchie.
Yeah, get out of that.
Yeah, you saw Guy Ritchie's Aladdin movie. It felt like anyone could have made that movie. Didn't feel Guy Ritchie. When you see The Gentleman,
little elements that kind of snuck out, and I was like, okay, this is finally Guy Ritchie film. But for the most part, like the majority of it, there's none of his essence there.
Yeah. I can't wait for you to see The Gentleman. So, Light of My Life and The Gentleman. I can't wait to read your reviews on them, hear your commentary on them. But okay, so you picked Knives Out. I don't have a very strong opinion either way on it. Apart from that, I don't think Knives Out.
I know it's not going to win. Like, I think the ones that have the best chance of winning for original screenplay are either Parasite or Marriage Story.
Or Marriage Story.
Actually, no, I take that back. I think
Once Upon a Time. Yeah, I think that this might be where they do it for it. The best adapted screenplay: The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, Joker, Little Woman, and The Two Popes. I had no idea that Jojo Rabbit is adapted from something. It might not be a book. It might be an idea, short story, something like that. Okay, we don't have to dwell too much on this. For me, it'll be The Irishman. We did Joker. It'll be The Irishman. It'll be The Irishman.
For The Irishman, for sure.
Yeah. Although I think that Joker, for them to take the character of the Joker and use it in the way they did, absolutely brilliant. But this is not where I would award it. I'd say The Irishman. Next up, we're coming to the heavy hitters. Best director. Yeah.
Oh, we're going all in.
Yeah. And so there are only five nominees. As we said, some of our solutions for making it more inclusive and more egalitarian would be to include make it best female and best male, or make 10 nominees. But there are only 5, and they are Martin Scorsese for The Irishman, Todd Phillips for Joker, Sam Mendes for 1917, Quentin Tarantino for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Bong Joon-ho for Parasite. So, Britt, what is your verdict on this category?
So first and foremost, I would like to say at least 3 of these, for me, I wouldn't mind see winning.
Very true.
To be honest, I don't really care about anybody winning in this, but like the 3 that I'm like, okay, like I'm happy they won would be Sam Mendes, Bong Joon, and Martin Scorsese. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. With that being said, like I am personally invested, and I know he has no shot of winning, but I am personally invested in wanting Martin Scorsese to win for The Irishman.
Okay. All right. Well, for me,
to go into why that is way too long. So instead, I'm going to direct you guys to my website, Pop Culture Reviews. I wrote an essay on why I love The Irishman so much. It's one of my favorite reviews I've ever written. Please go check it out.
All right.
Maybe.
Guys, check that out. For me, before I saw 1917, I would have said Joker. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I say Joker is because Joker it grips you and it shakes you. It's a movie directed with fire and fury and passion, and yes, Joaquin Phoenix is a huge component of that, but he has to be directed by someone. Someone has to channel all that energy and channel that talent. And if you listen to a lot of interviews and things about the movie, they shot many scenes, many iterations. So the director does have to pick from, all the footage that he has and compile it to tell this story. And I just feel like he did such an excellent job, and I'm so happy for him getting this sort of notoriety, because I've always known that he had this in him, even though people may be like, "Well, he directed like Hangover." And when I saw the Hangover movies, the first thing is that if you watch the Hangover movies, you notice that they're different from your typical comedies. Yeah. The way they're shot, the style, the cinematography, there's just something about them that's a little bit elevated. And then when he did War Dogs, which was already a riff on Scorsese type, white guys doing bad things movies, I could tell. And then there was this particular interview where the old head of Warner Brothers was talking about like the best directors that he had shepherded into Warner Brothers fold, and he talked about 4 directors, and he said these directors are the best at what they do. He said Clint Eastwood. Now, he didn't shepherd Clint Eastwood into Warner Brothers, but he had Clint Eastwood in the stable, and he was keeping him happy, and he mentioned Clint Eastwood. We all know Clint Eastwood. He mentioned Christopher Nolan. We all know Christopher Nolan. He was one that brought in Christopher Nolan. He mentioned Zack Snyder and Todd Phillips. And I was like, what? Like Todd Phillips? Really? So I had to go back and do my research and kind of really like look deeper. And then I was convinced. I was like, what? He's actually like, right. He knows his stuff. This is an executive. So anyway, to cut a long story short, when Joker was first announced, I told people like, look, Todd Phillips is an auteur director. He's really good. Like, this is not just the guy that did The Hangover. This is going to be amazing. And I'm really happy to see it finally, bearing fruit for him. But after watching 1917, Jesus Christ. Just give me that Mendes. Like, just Jesus Christ.
I'm not going to be upset at all when he wins.
Wow. Like, whew. Okay. All right, then. Best Supporting Actress, Kathy Bates for Richard Jewell. Laura Dern for Marriage Story, Scarlett Johansson for Jojo Rabbit, Florence Pugh for Little Woman, and Margot Robbie for Bombshell. I haven't seen several of these movies. I've seen Jojo Rabbit. I've seen Marriage Story. Richard Jewell, I haven't seen. Little Woman, I haven't seen. Bombshell, I was supposed to see, but I wasn't able to see it before we did this podcast. Unfortunately, I ran out of time. So I will let you take the stage, and you're shaking your head. And
I say this is the most unseasoned category and nominees I've seen in a long time.
I don't know what's going on with this category. What's that like? What is? I'm trying to think of female performances.
When I look back on the careers of Kathy Bates, Laura Dern, Scarlett Johansson, Florence, and Margot, like these are all very good actresses, but best actress in a supporting role, I can tell you right now, Octavia Spencer blew all 5 of these other women in her supporting role in LUCE.
Yeah, definitely, without a doubt. I think it's going to be between Laura Dern and Scarlett Johansson.
I mean, like Laura has been cleaning up in Marriage Story. Why she was nominated for Marriage Story, I have no idea why, because it's kind of like her character in Big Little Lies. I don't know if
exactly. I feel like she's doing a Laura Dern. Yeah.
With that being said, she was way better in Little Women. She was like phenomenal in Little Women. Okay. So why she wasn't nominated for that, I don't know. Maybe that was split the votes between Florence and her, but like why she's winning for Marriage Story, I'm not sure. It is what it is. I think she'll win. Who am I personally rooting for? Nobody.
There you go. If I had to pick one, I would actually pick Scarlett Johansson, although I'm not the biggest fan of hers. That's a story for another day. Separate the art from the artist. And I'm mature enough to do that. Scarlett Johansson is actually who I'd pick because I feel Laura Dern just did the Laura Dern in Marriage Story. Like that's her wheelhouse. She didn't really stretch herself, in my opinion. The best supporting actor, Tom Hanks in A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, which I haven't seen. Anthony Hopkins in The Two Popes, which I haven't seen. Al Pacino in The Irishman, which I have seen. Joe Pesci in The Irishman, which I have seen. Brad Pitt in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I have seen. This is missing. Okay, no, this is not. No, I think I'm okay with this. I'm okay with this. I would give it to Joe Pesci in The Irishman. He didn't have as big a role as Al Pacino did, but there is a simmering intensity.
There's this phrase called the silent killer, and that's exactly what Joe Pesci is in The Irishman. I mean,
he was all presence.
Talk about having a terrifying presence. Like,
absolutely.
Joe Pesci rocked this role, and I feel like not a lot of people are gonna appreciate it because you have the polar opposite, Al Pacino, who was like coming in guns a-blazing, hot and bothered, like just completely there in his portrayal. But like Joe Pesci is so reserved and so man, it's striking the way he was able to convince me in being terrified of his character. And that's how much I appreciate his role. With that being said, like, yes, I would pick Joe Pesci over Brad Pitt 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times over. I mean, anybody who truly knows me knows that, like, I'm not the biggest Brad Pitt fan. I think he did fine in Once Upon a Time, don't get me wrong, but, like, I think Brad Pitt was basic. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that the lines of dialogue carried his performance.
Yeah, the script, that's where the script kind of shined for him. Yeah. All
right, so Best Actress.
That being said, I do really like Tom Hanks though in A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. He was phenomenal.
I haven't seen that one, so I'll trust your opinion on that one. So best actress, we have Cynthia Erivo in Harriet as Harriet Tubman, Scarlett Johansson in Marriage Story, Saoirse Ronan in Little Woman, Charlize Theron in Bombshell, and Renee Zellweger in Judy.
Can I just say that this is two people, Lupita from Us.
Oh, Lupita, my girl Lupita.
And Florence from Midsummer.
Yeah.
With that being said, they are not here. So I'm going to pick from this. And I will say, since October, the beginning October, and y'all can go to my letterbox. If you don't believe me, my letterbox is bwithers18. Since October, and since I walked out of Judy, I have been championing,
wow.
however you say it, for Renee Zellweger to get her Oscar. I really have.
Wow.
Believe me, go look for the details. But oh God, I'm going to just go into spoiler territory. There's this moment in the movie where her character finally indulges in eating. You know, because Judy has suffered from a lot of eating problems and a lot of weight issues, not because she thought she was too fat, but because the people around her, said like, oh, you need to be this particular size. And so that caused her to have a lot of eating problems and drug problems and so forth, so on. There's this moment in the film where she finally indulges in eating a piece of cake. And I swear I've never cried so hard at someone eating a freaking piece of cake. Renee Zellweger blew my freaking mind. That scene deserves this damn Oscar. I don't care what anybody says. I am a Black woman. Like, I believe in diversity when it comes to these roles. Yes, I believe Lupita deserves to be in this category, but Renee, like, that moment alone, she deserves this Oscar. And I don't care what anybody says. Y'all can cry about her winning all you want, but she deserves it.
Wow. Okay. The only film I've seen on this list is Marriage Story, and Scarlett Johansson is nominated. And I have something controversial to say about it. I feel that Scarlett Johansson was the weak link in that film. I feel like a lot of her lines felt like she was reciting them.
Interesting.
For me, it felt her performance felt like she was thinking hard and trying to remember the lines. Like, the driver was absolutely brilliant in that movie. He was breathtaking in that movie.
Yeah.
He brought an emotionality to it and a truth to it that cannot be denied. He felt real in it, but she felt wooden, and sometimes she was overacting, and she was thinking about acting and not acting.
It's a shame. I feel like this is one of the first times I really felt it from her. It's interesting, polar, opinions about her performance in this. And I know everyone wants to always refer back to that big argument scene that Driver and she does.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of her best moments within this film is when her character in particular is reserving herself from crying or holding back from crying. And then you see her like the blocking in particular. You see her turn away from Driver's character, and then that's when she finally releases her tears. And I think it's those most reserved moments that she really shines. So, and I think unfortunately it got overlooked, especially with that big argument scene.
Yeah.
But that's unfortunate. Sorry you didn't like it.
No. That's just her performance. I liked the movie. We'll talk more about it soon if we get a chance. Yes, we will. So let's talk about Best Actor. Antonio Banderas for Pain and Glory, which I haven't seen. Leonardo DiCaprio for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. No surprise there. Adam Driver for Marriage Story. I just talked about his performance, so there's validation. Joaquin Phoenix for Joker and Jonathan Pryce for The Two Popes, which I also haven't seen. So, what's your commentary on the nominees and who do you think should win?
This was one of the categories when they announced the winner. Actually, even prior to them announcing the winners, I was like, I don't care.
Ah,
Because, not because I love this category. Don't get me wrong. It's just that looking back on the films that I watched this year, I don't think the men were as strong as the women in acting this year.
okay.
So when I looked at the umbrella that is actor in a leading role, I'm like, who I can't think of 10 performances where I'm like, this is rad. Where like there's a lot of performances on the flip side and an actress in a leading role where I can. With all of that being said, like since I saw Marriage Story, I was always rooting for Adam Driver, but I think I just think Joaquin delivered everything he was supposed to do. He did more, and he took a script, which I don't think the script is particularly sounding or it's just so complicated, and he had to do something crazy. I just think his execution and his delivery of his lines and everything he did, I was utterly convinced by his performance, and so I'm gonna give it to Joaquin. Though I do also love Antonio Banderas, and this is actually one of the first times that I was very much into. I know you guys are gonna hate me, but Leonardo DiCaprio's performance. He's one of the he's one of the actors that it takes a while for me to appreciate what he's doing on screen. It takes, I don't know if it's because it's unbelievable for me at first, but it takes a while for me to get into performances. But this is one of the ones where I was immediately into it. With all that being said, I would give it to Joaquin for sure.
Yeah. While I can't say I've seen all the performances, I think that this is missing. Now you're gonna disagree with me heavily. Brad Pitt and Ad Astra. Yeah. Now that evil laugh. Now Brad Pitt's performance in Ad Astra is very subtle.
Yeah,
very,
it is.
Very, very, very nuanced. While Joaquin Phoenix is fire and brimstone, Brad Pitt is still waters run deep. And I think that's one of the best acting performances I've ever seen him do, because a lot of it is so reserved and so there's just so much nuance to it. And maybe for some reason I could just read his body language and his face acting and everything he was conveying by not saying words and not being gregarious and loud with his movements or his voice, and his performance in that movie absolutely blew me away. The metamorphosis of his character from beginning to end is very profound. That said, it happens in such tiny increments and such small margins that you hardly notice it until it accumulates at the end and you see a completely different character. It just spoke to me. It just spoke to me. And while I think that Joaquin should definitely win this, I think that a performance like Brad Pitt's, a performance like Joe Pesci's, those type of performances, which are understated and nuanced, also need to be recognized. And
Yeah.
so I would just throw him a nomination for that one. I don't think he should have been nominated for Once Upon a Time. I think he should have been nominated for Ad Astra. Okay, and now to the big one, Best Picture. And our nominees are Ford v Ferrari, The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, Joker, Little Woman, Marriage Story, 1917, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Parasite. So this is the big one. One thing I want to say before we talk about this one is that when the year first started, I thought it was a very weak year in film because I hadn't done a lot of research into what was coming down the pipeline. Also, even if I hadn't seen the movies. I'm not the biggest fan of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I don't know if anyone noticed um, through the podcast. I think it's okay, but I mean, it's Quentin Tarantino. The film is exceptionally well made, but right before the Venice Film Festival, to that point, I felt it was a very weak year in film. The biggest thing people were talking about was Avengers Endgame, which I don't particularly like. A lot of the blockbusters had been either weak or mediocre or disappointing. I liked a few films, and I thought it was quite a poor year in film. And then we just got film after great film after great film after great film. And looking back at the year, it's one of the best years in film that we've had like in a while. So this best picture race is going to be hotly contested. It's going to be close. I'm sure that there's like at least 6 or 7 that nobody will be upset at if they won like best picture. I'll be upset if Jojo Rabbit won best picture, but apart from that, I think that there are quite a few that are very deserving. So anyway, the floor is yours, Britt.
Well, I can already say, well, I bet the listeners are already going to know what I'm going to say right now. I bet you are going to know what I'm going to say right now.
I know.
What?
I know what it is.
Okay, great. I'll say it. There's one movie missing from this list, and that is Portrait of a Lady on Fire. I'm telling y'all, please go watch this movie. But I'm not going to waste any more time because it's not on this movie, unfortunately, to the mistake of the Academy, of course, and Neon. Looking at you, Neon Studios. Listen, I love Ford versus Ferrari, but it really doesn't hold a candle to the others, excluding Jojo Rabbit as well. Like, doesn't really hold a candle to the others. With that being said, you know, I've been really rooting for one film that's not Portrait, and it's The Irishman, but I honestly know it has zero chances. And my backup plan has always been, even before the Golden Globes, even before all the mayhem where people finally hopped on the bandwagon, it has been 1917. And I know it's very plain and so like vanilla of me to choose 1917, but Sam Mendes directed the hell out of this. This is in fact one of, if not the best movie of 2019, and there's no more denying it at this point. Like, if you haven't seen it, please check it out. Like, it is just remarkable filmmaking in the highest order. I highly recommend 1917. So that is my vote. Like I said before, The Irishman is like, I even rated The Irishman over 1917. But I mean, again, I know it has no chances. 1917, for me, it is, for sure.
All right. Well, I kind of agree with you that I don't think Jojo Rabbit should be on here. I don't think Ford v Ferrari should be on here. And if you're like, oh, well, if you take it off, then what would you put on there? Yes, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, I think should be on here. I think Ad Astra should be on here. I absolutely adore Ad Astra. To me, that's just, It's phenomenal filmmaking, and I don't know why the Academy ignored it. It's saying something existential and something important about us as human beings. It's saying something that space movies say, but it's saying it in a completely different way. So if you look at a movie like Interstellar, Interstellar is about us rekindling our spirit of adventure and going out there and space exploration and trying to inspire that. And this movie is saying that when we go out, we end up finding that everything that we wanted and everything that we need is here with us. It's a very powerful message. It also has a powerful message about legacy and parents and their children and fathers and their sons and that sort of thing. And obviously the cinematography and the filmmaking are amazing. The score is gorgeous. I just have no idea why it was just roundly ignored and rejected. And it astounds me because it's one of the most grand and beautiful films of the year on every single level. But that's a story for another day. So those two films, I feel, at Astra and Portrait of a Lady on Fire, have been robbed when it comes to like this massive award celebration. But I haven't seen Little Women, but from what I hear, it looks like it belongs. From what I hear, but I haven't seen it, so I guess I can't say it. Marriage Story. I grew up watching Kramer versus Kramer, and not for nostalgia's sake, Kramer vs. Kramer, which I watched actually last year, because I hadn't seen it in a while, is a better movie than Marriage Story, because I feel that Marriage Story paints divorce, which I have not been divorced, so I don't know, but it has quite an optimistic view on it. Says that it can be a heartbreaking, wrenching experience, but in the end, you come to a consensus and move on. But Kramer versus Kramer is just brutal. It's absolute. It destroys you because it's about a child that gets caught up in the mix. Marriage Story is more about the adults and how they deal with it, but Kramer versus Kramer is about the child and how it just absolutely destroys the child. And oof, you need to watch Kramer vs. Kramer if you're thinking of an old movie to watch and you like Marriage Story. So it will be good research for you. It's whew. That was also an award-winning movie, obviously everyone knows. But if 1917 wins, I will not be mad. If Parasite wins, I will not be mad. If Joker wins, I will not be mad. If The Irishman wins, I will not be mad. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I don't think it should win, but it does belong on the list because it's Quentin Tarantino, and Quentin Tarantino going Quentin Tarantino. But I would give it to Joker, because part of it obviously is because of my background as someone who grew up loving comic books, so I understand that how difficult and how much of a feat it is to take these things that are treated in such a trite manner and really elevate it in a very intelligent and sincere way. And also, as I said, very relevant in terms of its social commentary. And I love how, I'll use the word aggressive it is. It's very aggressive it shakes you. It's a movie that really, really, really shakes you. And it's trying to wake us up, because I think the most powerful and one liner I can use to describe it is that it says that the monsters that haunt us are of our own making. And it's not something a lot of people like to hear, but it's real, and the movie does a good job of just really shaking you and giving you that message, and like being like, society, like, wake the hell up, so I would give it to Joker, but I wouldn't be mad if any of those other movies that I listed wins it. And it should be very interesting to see how film Twitter is gonna blow up if Joker wins. Oh my goodness, the banter would be oh my god.
I don't think it's gonna win, so they can
I don't
always
think it's gonna win either.
I mean, they're already having a cow with with Joaquin winning for Best Actor.
Yep.
But like, honestly, like, get over it. Like, your life has to end because of film you didn't like won. And for the record, like, all these people like coming at people for liking Joker, it's like, get over it. Stop. Like, it's
the joke. It's a topic for another pod. The Joker hate is. Let's not get into it.
Yeah.
Let's not get into it. But the Joker hate is just, it's weird. It's a weird thing. But I think that Parasite might win in an upset. Like, you never know. Like, I think 1917 is expected to win.
I heard a lot of the Academy voters said they didn't watch Parasite because they had subtitles and they didn't want to.
What?
Who knows? But like, I wouldn't put it past them because, like, they don't even watch all the nominees anyways, right?
Yeah.
Put it past them to ignore a particular film because they had to pay attention to subtitles.
True. Yeah, I think 1917 is the lead horse. And I'll say Parasite is a dark horse. Just because I feel like for Parasite being an international film, to win Best Picture would be a really good headline. Yeah, and I can see that happening, but Joker, it was just too controversial for them to. I feel like
movies were really not that controversial. Like,
it really isn't. It was just that's what I'm saying. It was all manufactured. What I mean by controversial is just hated, basically, hated by a lot of. Let's not get into it. But I'll just say it was divisive, but the movie on its own is strong, so they feel like, all right, we did a good job by recognizing it, but we're not going to give it the top prize. I think that's going to be its fate. Joaquin is going to win, deservedly so. I think it's probably going to win score because they're in love with Hildur, goodness her, and I think maybe it might win screenplay or something, but I think that's where it stops. I think, but I'm happy with the fact that it just got nominated. Like, I'm that's enough validation for me in terms of good work getting its just due. At the end of the day, it's a winner in my heart, and that's all that matters. And so that wraps up our Oscar talk. Britt, I am happy we got to do this. This has been a long time in the making. We almost didn't get it done, but we were like, you know what? Whatever it takes, we're going to make it work. And we did. This is not going to be our last collaboration, not by a long shot.
Nope, not in the least.
Do you have any last words to say to wrap this up? And obviously, please.
Possible to say for a film podcast other than watch Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
Yes, sir. I completely agree. I'm actually gonna put out a review for Portrait of a Lady on Fire on our YouTube channel. Let's get the word on this gem.
Read another review, like, it's my pinned tweet, like.
Exactly. So where can people find you on Twitter? What's your Twitter handle?
I should mention what my handle is. It is BB18180.
There you go. And the blog site, the website is again?
popculturereviews.com.
And the blog site's Twitter handle is?
Is popculturerev. REVS.
Nice. And I have been yours truly, Lupe, from the film Exiles. Until next time, as we always say, stay exiled.